Story 1. My daughter blocked me after the divorce without listening to my side of the story. Contacted me now, 8 years later, to get my inheritance. I, 54M, got divorced from my wife, 48F, 8 years ago, and my daughter, 28F, cut all contact with me and chose her mother's side without even asking me how I felt. Even though my divorce was nearly a decade ago, it has taken a lot of time for me to accept how things turned out to be and make peace with my life. This has been partly because my ex-wife tried to completely destroy my reputation, but mostly because I really loved my daughter, and being completely shut out from her life was harder than anything. As she was an adult at the time, there was no way for me to be in her life unless she wanted me to be, and she seemed sure of her decision to pick her mother over me. I don't have any family of my own except my mom, who had Alzheimer's, so the whole ordeal was definitely one of the worst things that has ever happened to me. I tried to contact my daughter several times after the divorce, but she was dead set on being on her mom's side and didn't even try to hear my side of the story. At one point, my ex reached out to me and sued me for harassment if I didn't leave my daughter alone. That spelled things out for me, and I stopped contacting her. I've spent the last 8 years taking care of my mom and focusing on my career. I've had a few casual relationships here and there, but I feel like I can't fully trust another person after my divorce. Anyway, that has been my life for nearly a decade. Sorry if I seem like a downer. The reason I'm writing this post is because my daughter recently reached out to me after all this time. I was over the moon and thought that she had finally come to her senses and understood that the divorce was not just my fault. It was also comforting, in particular because my mother recently passed away, and I've been dealing with that grief by myself and was crazy giving some comfort and family. So my daughter reached out to me a few months after my mother passed away. I got a call from a number I didn't recognize, and I picked up to hear a woman's voice on the other side. I didn't know it was my daughter and didn't even recognize her voice because it had been that long since we spoke, and I was quite shocked when she introduced herself. She said that she saw on Facebook that her grandma passed away and wanted to check up on me. I was taken aback. I didn't even know that she kept tabs on me online and thought it was sweet of her. I thanked her for calling and said that I was doing all right and told her that I missed her. We talked for a bit, and she said that if I wanted to meet and actually catch up in person instead of on the phone, she would like that. I was extremely happy and agreed immediately. We agreed to meet at my house over the weekend. I was really excited about meeting her after all these years. So I am writing this post to share my excitement with anyone who might be reading. I hope we can rebuild our relationship again, or at least get to know each other. My daughter came over to have dinner with me because I wanted to cook for her. I was nervous and excited when I first opened the door. I absolutely didn't recognize her because it's been nearly a decade since I last saw her, and she was just a little girl back then. We started talking, and even though it was a little awkward at first, I think we both opened up after a while. She told me about her life and what she does for work, and I told her about my life. After dinner, we finally acknowledged the elephant in the room. I asked her why she never bothered to listen to my side of the story during the divorce and chose her mom by default. I mean, I admitted that her mother was more present as a parent because she was a stay-at-home mom, and back then I worked in construction and worked long hours, but I always tried my best to take out as much time as I possibly could for my daughter. My daughter then said that she regrets how things turned out and that she was too young to think things through and got manipulated by how her mom made things sound. Basically, my ex-wife painted me as the ultimate bad guy who didn't care about anyone except himself. And since she never got to hear my side of the story, she never questioned whatever her mom said. We talked a bit more about this, and things were going well until she finally revealed why she was there. We had been talking for hours at that point when I asked her what made her reach out to me after all these years. She looked a little uncomfortable, and I told her that she could be honest with me. Well, then she said that she really had been keeping tabs on me through Facebook, and when she found out that her grandmother had died, she thought lawyers would contact her about her inheritance. When no one did, she thought she should reach out to me personally. She said that she wanted to give me some time and space to grieve, but she had recently gotten engaged and could really use some money to help out with the wedding expenses. Felt like getting punched in the gut, honestly. I thought that after all these years, my prayers were answered, and I could have a family again, but it turns out she never cared for me in the first place, and all this was a way for her to get her inheritance. The funniest thing is that it's not even her inheritance legally. It's all mine, and if only she wasn't such a terrible daughter to me, she would definitely end up with most, if not all, of it. I don't care about money. I never have, honestly. I live in a house of my own, don't have any expensive hobbies, and mostly buy my clothes from Target. Even if the inheritance wasn't in question in the first place, I wouldn't have minded helping out with her wedding at all if she had reached out nicely instead of trying to take advantage of me and only caring about the inheritance. All of this was going through my head at the same time. I somehow maintained my composure and asked her if that was all she wanted. She got very defensive and said that the inheritance was second, and her actual goal was to connect with me, and she would never forgive herself for not reaching out while her grandmother was alive. She said that she had wanted to reach out for years but never got the courage to actually do it because she thought I would never forgive her for kicking me out without an explanation, and that she was also manipulated by her mom. But I could see from the panicked look on her face that she was just trying to smooth things out so I could forgive her, and I wondered if she was just after the money. I asked her how she knew she had an inheritance, and she said that a couple of years before the divorce, she was visiting my late mother, and she told her that she wanted her to inherit everything left by my father, who passed away years ago, as she was the only grandchild in the family. I don't have any siblings, and at that point my marriage was fine, so I understand why my mother might have said that to my daughter. I mean, if the divorce never happened, or my daughter hadn't abandoned me for years after the divorce, the money would have been hers, as I've already mentioned. But the thought of her only caring about the money and giving me false hope was absolutely crushing. I was devastated but did my best not to let her know at that moment. I thought the only way of testing my daughter's intentions would be to see how she would react if I told her there was no money to inherit. I asked her how much she expected from the inheritance, and she made quite a decent guess. I could tell that some planning went into this whole thing. I then told her that I'm sorry to disappoint her, but that her grandmother actually left everything to me years ago, and I plan on using that money to start a business, so I couldn't help her out. I offered to help out for her wedding with my own money by offering a few grand for wedding expenses. The disappointment on her face proved my worst fears. She said that she appreciated my offer, but as the only grandchild, she deserves at least some of the inheritance because it's her grandma's money that she was offered. I told her that I wished I could help her, but my decision was final, and there was nothing I could do for her. If she wasn't happy with the money I was offering, she went completely red in the face and started getting visibly angry. She told me again to reconsider my decision, but I reiterated that I was going to stick to what seemed right to me. And that's when she showed her true colors and said something that confirmed all my doubts regarding her true intentions. She told me that she should have known that I'll always be the selfish a-hole her mom said I was, and she's glad I'm alone in life. I looked at her with barely concealed disgust. Her words were hurtful, but at that point, I knew what to expect. I just didn't expect her to get that brutally honest that fast. That's all. She started to say something else, but I stopped her before she could speak. I told her that I should have known she was her mother's daughter, and that the only reason she would reach out to anyone was to ask for a favor. I also told her that using the fact that I was grieving for my mother to try and manipulate me was disgusting, even for a person like her. She tried to say something at that point, but I just laughed in her face and said that if only she had not blocked me all those years ago, she would have gotten my text about her grandmother and would have probably gotten most, if not all, of the inheritance. That sentence had the effect I wanted. She looked utterly baffled and asked me what I meant. I told her to unblock me on her old number so I could resend her all the texts that could never get delivered. Well, she did. I forwarded all the texts where I begged her to hear me out and even let her know that her grandmother was diagnosed with Alzheimer's, and I wanted them to meet before she forgot about her only grandchild completely. This was completely true, as at the beginning of her illness, my mom did often mention my daughter and asked to see her. I remember how it broke my heart to not be able to fulfill that wish, and now this ungrateful, cruel child had the audacity to ask for inheritance. To my daughter's credit, I will admit that she looked ashamed after reading all of those messages. She apologized to me but said that looking at these messages, it was clear that her grandma would want her to have her share of the inheritance, and it wasn't fair for me to punish her like this. She said that she was young and didn't know any better during the divorce, or else she would have handled things differently. She also told me that she genuinely wants to rebuild our relationship, and if I choose to be selfish now, she won't feel comfortable continuing our relationship. I told her that if money is what makes or breaks it for her, then maybe it's better if we don't have a relationship at all. I wanted to believe her when she said all that crap about rebuilding our relationship. I truly did, but at that point I couldn't. I told her that I would consider giving our relationship another chance. But the inheritance was out of the question. She looked at me with pure hatred and left my house. I didn't try to stop her at all. Since then, I've spoken to a few of my friends. Most of them agreed that I did the right thing, but one of my closest friends said that since I don't really care about the money, I should just forget about it and let my daughter have at least some of it if it meant having family in my life. I don't agree with this, but ever since he said it, I can't get it out of my head. Should I give my daughter part of my inheritance? Update 1. Hi there. This post got a lot more responses than I thought it would. Thanks for your advice and opinions. It gave me the perspective I needed. I guess I'll start by answering the most common question. What happened during my divorce? I haven't spoken about it for years, but I guess it can't hurt anymore. So, my wife and I were married for 23 years. You'd think after all those years, she wouldn't be able to stab me in the back. But she did. I really don't want to get into the details, but I found out that she was cheating on me with multiple men. Apparently, it had been going on for years before I finally found out. When I found out, I was completely devastated. I didn't know how to confront her, so I started drinking heavily and sleeping around as well. I nearly destroyed my life. I fought a lot with her, and I guess that and the drinking made it really easy for her to manipulate my daughter into taking her side. After nearly a year of living like that and being separated, we finally confronted each other and got divorced. My ex-wife used to be a journalist at the time, and as kind of a local celebrity, she used her influence to try to destroy my reputation and was nearly successful. After the divorce, it took me a lot of time to quit drinking and get back to my normal life. As I've said already, my daughter completely abandoning me did not help, to say the least. I'll admit that when I found out about my ex's affairs, I kind of went off the rails and wasn't present as a parent for my daughter, even during the time I was separated, and for a year or so after the divorce. I pretty much always kept to myself and wasn't there for my daughter. But once I stopped drinking and got my life back together, the first thing I did was to reach out to her and apologize, but she refused to listen to me and blocked me everywhere. I thought giving her time would work and she would eventually come around, but here we are, 8 years later, and our relationship has only gotten worse with time. Now, the other big question is about my mom's inheritance. Well, technically, the money belonged to my father. My grandparents were both doctors and had bought property all around the city during their careers. Most of it was rented out and ended up bringing a lot of money. Dad passed away when I was 21 and left everything to Mom. All of it remained in her name during my marriage and for a few years after my divorce while her health was still right. After Mom passed away, I received everything as her sole heir. My wife didn't receive anything in the divorce except alimony until she got remarried a few years ago because my mom owned everything at the time. So, the way things stand, my daughter never even got close to owning anything. She knew, of course, that her grandma was a landlady and owned a couple of heirlooms, but I never touched any of that money because the money I made from my old construction business was more than enough to live comfortably. I hope I've answered all your questions. Also, my daughter hasn't reached out to me after that night, and I don't think she will, to be honest. I think she made it pretty clear that she only put up this whole show for the inheritance, and now that it's out of the question, I don't expect to see her around anymore. I'd be lying if I said I am not at all upset about it, but at this point, I know not to expect too much out of people, no matter who they are. So that's that, I guess. Thanks to all of you for sending support. I appreciate it. I also think it's maybe time for me to put myself out there and maybe get back into dating and find companionship instead of expecting ghosts from my past to come around. Update 2. It's been quite a week, guys. I thought that would be my last and only update, but I guess life had other plans. Anyway, I had just gotten back from work and was considering going out with a couple of buddies when the doorbell rang. I wasn't expecting anyone, but I opened the door, and there she was, my worst nightmare. She has changed her hair and lost some weight, so it took me a couple of seconds to recognize her. But it's hard to forget someone you were together with for decades. Seeing her was quite a shock to say the least. I didn't know what to say, so I just stood there awkwardly. She then asked me if I had a moment to talk about some stuff. I was hesitant, but I didn't want her to stand there at my door, so I just invited her in. It was really awkward, as you guys can probably imagine. We made small talk about this and that, and then she said that she understood that this was a little strange, but there were some things she needed to tell me. I asked her to go on, and she said that our daughter reached out to her and told her about the inheritance. I think I kind of saw that coming. I mean, why else would she need to speak to me after all those years? Anyway, she said that she understood the divorce was really hard on me and that she took things further than she probably should have. I just scoffed at that, but she ignored my reaction. She then said that I shouldn't punish my daughter for what happened between the two of us. She said the same things my daughter has said, such as her being very young at the time of the divorce and how I can't be resentful towards her for choosing her mother over me. I just stopped her at that point and said that I have no resentment towards anyone anymore and that even if I held on to any anger, it wouldn't be towards her daughter. I told her that I was hurt at the realization that after all those years, she only thought of reaching out to her father because there was a possibility of getting some money out of it. I told her the same thing I told my daughter, that if she had the decency to try and reconnect earlier, she would have ended up with the inheritance. My ex tried to put up some sort of defense, but I told her that my decision was final, and if they're just going to go around in circles about this one thing, then they're wasting everyone's time. I said that I had plans and that if there was nothing else to discuss, she should probably leave. She nodded and apologized for bothering me, and I told her there was no need for that, and she left. After she left, I just sat there in disbelief. I never expected to ever see her again, let alone have a conversation in my home. It was strange and brought up a lot of old memories that I would rather not have thought about ever again. I went out with my friends and tried to forget all about it. So yeah, that happened, and I needed to get it off my chest. Thanks for reading along if you're still here. Update 3. I have another update for you guys. So, this afternoon, I was at work when I got a call from my daughter. I thought of not picking up, but curiosity got the best of me and I picked up. I picked up and straight away told her that if this was about the inheritance, then I really don't think there's a point in us having a conversation. She said that there was something else she wanted to talk about. I asked her to go on, and she said that she had been thinking a lot about what happened and felt like she owed me an apology. She said that she understood that she should have done things differently and that if I was willing to forgive her and give our relationship another chance, then she would be happy to have me at her wedding. I was really taken aback, to say the least. I asked her if she was sure about it and she said yes, and that I could take some time to think about it and let her know if I'd be there or not. I said all right and we hung up. I'm really confused now. A part of me is overjoyed at the thought of being at her wedding, but I also can't seem to shake the feeling that this is just some way for her to be on my good side and eventually get the inheritance at the same time. If she's actually being genuine, I don't want to sabotage my chance at being in her life. If I say no, and she never reaches out again, I could hardly blame her. I'd appreciate some advice if anyone would like to help me out. Update 4. I've decided to go to the wedding. Many of you said that going to the wedding couldn't do any harm. I guess that makes sense. It's not like I have to do anything in return for being invited to the wedding. Also, no, I'm not in the wedding party. I'd just be a guest. I'm fine with that, as I understand that going from someone she hasn't spoken to in 8 years to someone walking her down the aisle at the wedding is a big leap. I don't think either of us would be comfortable with that. I really do hope this is the start of a new chapter, and that we can build something meaningful out of this. Thanks to all of you for listening and all the advice you've given. I appreciate it and hope you guys wish me luck. Now on to the next story. Story 2. Before we start, if you're enjoying this video so far, please consider liking and subscribing to the channel. Now let's continue. My wife told me to shut my mouth in front of everyone. My wife and I are at odds lately over her SIL, who is also her best friend, who is married to her brother. Long story short, she bends over backward to accommodate their every ask, including babysitting, errands, etc. This extends to volunteering me to help them without my knowledge or consent, etc. She never sees my point of view or agrees with any criticism of them I have. We were at my nephew's birthday party today. My SIL is the one who's hosting it, so my wife is super keen for things to go well. Things were going okay. My daughter, 3, was a bit upset because her balloon animal had accidentally been popped. So she was standing with my wife getting a cuddle, and a boy older than her, 5 or 6, sprinted into her and knocked her over. She's crying obviously, and I pick her up. My wife is making a joke of it, saying, "Oh, she needs to watch where she's going." I said back to her, "Don't blame her for getting bowled over by the bigger boy." Now, apparently, the mother of this other kid was in earshot, which prompted my wife to tell me in front of one of her other best friends and a couple of other guests to shut my mouth. Then she had the cheek to tell me to not have a moody face. 15 minutes before this post, I sent an email to a divorce lawyer for a consultation. I finally reached my limit. Update 1. Firstly, I'd just like to thank everyone for your responses, supportive or otherwise. Being heard and listened to is such a mental boost. I spoke to my solicitor first thing this morning, and we had a good talk. He knows that I'm angry and upset at the situation, and he says that he will get myself and my wife in for a consultation if we decide to go down that route. The issue in Scotland is that for a divorce where only one party wants out, it can take upwards of a year to get it and evidence of separation in that period unless both parties agree to unreasonable behavior as the reason for the courts granting the divorce. Long story short, I can't proceed without her buy-in if I want it resolved fast. So I took my daughter to my mom's after this and then sat my wife down. I told her that yesterday's situation was absolutely unacceptable and that if I had told her to shut her mouth in front of my friends, that I'd be getting crucified by everyone we know. I told her she was lucky I kept my mouth shut at the party and that I didn't give a damn about how SIL would have taken it. We fought again about SIL, and again she defended her actions, saying that I'm the selfish one who won't help out my family when they need it. I then did the perhaps petty move of dropping divorce leaflets I'd printed for my solicitor's website in front of her. I said to her, "I absolutely want to help my family, and this is how I do it." I told her about how I was tired of playing third wheel in my own marriage, and I told her that I was not prepared to subject my daughter to a lifetime of this subservience. Finally, it looks like what I've said has had an impact. She cried, and I think she was close to having a panic attack. This made me feel guilty because fundamentally I don't think she's a bad person. She's just brainwashed into thinking SIL is the second coming of the Messiah. So she promised that when I finished work today we could have a serious talk about things, and she would listen to my concerns. Right now, I'm not buying it, but I owe her and my daughter at least a chance to sort things out, so I'll see where it goes. To answer some questions folks had. I know this seemed like an overreaction to something, but you've got to understand this was the latest in a long line of SIL-related issues. Some folks have asked if my wife is gay and in love with SIL. I have thought about this as a possibility. I didn't ask her yet, but I may tonight. It certainly seems logical given how passionate she gets about it. Thanks everyone for reading, and especially all of you who have messaged me. I appreciate it more than you know. Update 2. Hi again everyone. Thanks for all of your continued support and advice. I wanted to put another update on to let you know what was happening. So we sat down last night for the crunch talks. I have to give her credit where it's due. She apologized for what she said at the party, and she said that she'd also considered divorce if I'd done the same to her. I reiterated to her that my issue is that she completely makes herself subservient to SIL at our expense. I pointed out how messed up it was that she didn't immediately take our daughter's side in this incident. The collision was accidental, I think, but I told her that to blame the little one was out of line, which she accepted. I then asked her outright if she had any sort of romantic feelings for SIL. She squirmed and looked a little uncomfortable. She said that a long time ago, at the end of high school, there had been a drunken kiss on a night out, but nothing beyond that. She sort of played the angle that she didn't want anyone, especially her brother, to know about it, and that's why she bent over backward to make sure SIL was happy. I asked her if SIL had ever threatened to reveal this incident, but she denied that it had even been brought up. She just thinks that if the wider family knew, it would bring up a lot of weirdness. She swears that she has no interest in having any kind of relationship with SIL and that she's straight. I told her I didn't care about what she did that long ago, but that it needed to stop impacting our relationship in the present because I am the thinnest of thin hairs away from walking away forever. She surprisingly apologized again and said that she'd really try to work on it. I told her that I needed to see some proof of that so she could consider herself on probation. I told her that if I feel that it's happened again, I'll be taking our daughter to stay at my mom's. She accepted this, so we're proceeding cautiously. Sorry if this isn't the update you were all hoping for, but I think it's the best thing for the three of us right now. Update 3. I've posted here many times about issues I've had with my wife, most commonly with regard to her subservience to her best friend turned sister-in-law, Phil. She's promised to try and work on this given how much it's impacted our marriage. But today I think we passed the point of no return. You see, today is my birthday. It's past midnight now, though. This morning my daughter, who is nearly 4, gave me huge hugs and kisses, which was great. My wife gave me a card and told me that my gift hadn't arrived in the post yet. My suspicion is that she's yet to order it or ordered it late, whatever it may be. I then logged into my work and did my shift like any other day. My wife was off work while my daughter was at my mom's for a visit. Nothing special was planned for the evening because there were plans in place already, just that those plans didn't include me. SIL and a couple of my wife's other friends had arranged to go out for dinner and drinks because a voucher SIL had for a particular restaurant expired soon, and my birthday was the only date they could all make. Shitty, right? Gets better, though, because my wife made a big social media post wishing me a happy birthday, saying how crap it was that I had to work all night on my birthday. A complete lie, but it does make her look less bad in public for not spending my birthday with me. The issue is because she's done this, I now couldn't make plans with friends or family without exposing her lie. So yeah, great birthday. When I think about how she'd react if I had pulled half the things she has pulled, I can't see it ending any other way than me getting screamed at, even though she's chosen to spend my birthday with SIL instead of me. On the plus side, I did some Warhammer painting after I collected my daughter and played with her a bit before bed. She also asked why mommy wasn't here, which kind of crushed me. Am I wrong to be annoyed about this? Update 4. Hi again, everyone. I just wanted to say firstly, thank you very much for all of your responses and private messages. Many of you were supportive and many of you rightfully, upon reflection, told me that I needed to grow some backbone and sort my shit out. I've been sitting on this for a few days because the full events of what has transpired since then have blown my mind and have brought home some very harsh truths about my relationship, but I also wanted to see if what went down would actually stick, and so far it has. The fun question out of the way first. For those who were asking about my painting, I was painting some Thousand Suns Terminators. So, starting the day after my birthday, my wife initiated sex, and let me tell you, this was an occasion in itself. I legitimately could not tell you the last time that this happened. It's been that long. I'm thinking to myself, maybe she's feeling guilty about yesterday, and she's trying to make it up. After the deed was done, she turned around to me and said, "Your present won't be here for another couple of days, that'll have to do for now." I'm pretty disappointed at this point, not because I had a huge desire for a particular gift, but because she felt that her behavior the day before was fine, and then for her to think it'll use sex to cover up my shit up was also a bit of a blow. Whatever, I've sucked up worse before and powered through. What broke me was her opinion on SIL's birthday. Long story short, for those who don't know, SIL is possibly my least favorite person on the planet due to her parasitic behavior and main character syndrome. Coincidentally, it's a couple of weeks after mine. My wife told me all about her birthday plans for her. She wanted to get her a gift for her favorite massage therapist. What was the big deal? The shop only sells paper vouchers, and it's a 3-hour round trip to the shop. So off she went again, leaving me with my daughter, and what commenced next can only be described as 3 hours of my brain simmering slowly toward an explosion. I took my daughter to my brother's house because I knew that when my wife came back, I was going to explode. When she came back, I was sitting in the living room with a backpack for me and, in an admittedly petty move, one pack for my daughter. This immediately got her attention, and she demanded to know what was going on. I unloaded it all. It wasn't coherent, and I definitely got more emotional as I unloaded more grievances. I started by telling her it was unacceptable how she completely screwed up my birthday while making SIL's birthday a major priority, how I was sick of feeling like a third wheel in my own marriage, how I had literally sacrificed my personality on the altar of keeping her happy, and how I never saw my friends anymore, yet she could do whatever she wanted. How I take care of the house despite working more hours than her for not even a shred of gratitude. How she used lack of sex as a tool of manipulation and control. I cried and shouted. She did the same and vehemently denied all of my accusations. She demanded to know where our girl was, and I told her that she would not be using her as a bargaining chip against me. We eventually calmed down enough to agree that I would keep her at our house while she temporarily stayed with her mom and dad. I agreed to drop her off for visits while we work things out. It's been a few emotionally exhausting days. I feel drained, spent, and tired, but I have my little girl, and I feel like I've done what I could. I don't know what my relationship status is right now. We haven't been speaking except to arrange drop-offs, and I'm comfortable with that for now. I need some more time before I consider more permanent steps. I've never ever unloaded on her like this before, but Jesus Christ, it felt good, even if she continued to deny everything. Now on to the next story. Story 3. My cheating wife freaked out and begged for forgiveness. She deserves what's coming. I discovered my soon-to-be ex-wife cheating about 7 months ago. I went through all the heartache, the denial, the pain, the pick-me attempts. I was seriously depressed for a long while. I never confronted her, but I was a total mess. She must have known I knew. She just didn't care, I guess. Or at least I assumed that. About 2 to 3 months ago, I was just done with it all. Done with her, done with the marriage. I just didn't care anymore. I completely checked out of the relationship and started preparing for divorce and my new life to come. I avoided my wife as much as possible. I tried to stay out of the house when she was home. I would not engage in conversation. When she asked me a question, I would only answer yes, no, maybe, or I don't know. I even left the divorce lawyer bills out in the open. She must have known I was checked out and preparing for divorce. Kids even asked me about it. Even they could see what was going on. I even did the "we both love you" speech. It's not your fault. Sometimes grown-ups can't be together anymore, etc. My wife was actually in the room and must have heard me talk to the kids. She didn't comment or object. I took her silence as consent. Anyway, a few days ago, I met a girl I used to know in school before I ever met my wife. We always had this tension between us, some kind of chemistry. We would always flirt and be touchy, but we never actually did anything about it. Let's call her Monica because I think she looks like Monica Bellucci. Monica and her family moved away before I found the guts actually to do anything about it. I regretted that for a long time, but I was young, shy, and stupid. I haven't been thinking about Monica for a long time. Actually, I haven't seen her for years. But as soon as we met, the tension between us was palpable, even more than I remember, and communication was effortless. She actually asked me out. I explained the situation to her with my soon-to-be ex-wife. I told her I wanted to be officially separated before I started dating. I wasn't going to cheat. Monica respected that. She gave me her number and told me to give her a call as soon as I was done doing what I had to do. She told me she never married, and she was really excited to get to know me again. I was even more excited. The encounter motivated me to finally confront my wife and officially get separation and divorce going. I was really happy when I went home and sat down waiting for my wife. I was actually grinning like a lunatic when I asked her to sit down and told her that we had to talk. I told her I'd known about her cheating for a long time. I told her I assumed that she knew I knew, especially since I checked out of our relationship for the last 3 months. She didn't seem to mind that I no longer cared. So I told her that I wanted to start dating and get on with my life. I concluded my speech with, "All taken into consideration, it's time for us to get divorced. Don't you agree?" Her reaction was totally not what I expected. She started crying. Not just regular crying either, like a desperate, soul-breaking noise. I have never heard anything like it. She was blabbering excuses, asking for second chances, that the affair didn't mean anything, we could fix this if we tried counseling, etc. I was a bit shocked. I thought she would be happy. I told her she could go and be with this guy without guilt. He is obviously more important to her than her family. If he wasn't, why go with him in the first place? She must have known this would destroy us. She can't possibly be that stupid. Can she? I told her if she believed we needed to fix our family or our marriage, the time to do that would have been 7 months ago before she had the affair. Now it's too late. It's broken beyond repair. I don't think we had any problems in our marriage. She didn't talk to me, and I'm not a mind reader, so whatever it was, I had no way of fixing it. Since she started this affair with the other guy, she obviously thought something was wrong or missing, something that was so wrong that it couldn't be solved by talking to me. Something had to be so lacking or so wrong that she was okay with having our children grow up in a broken home from there on in. If not, why do it? I clearly and calmly explained that there was no way for her to unfuck this guy for the last 7 months. And there was no way to undo the pain and suffering she caused me. The pain she caused made me arrive at this point of basically being indifferent. Or actually, I kind of hate her guts. I'm simply being civil for the sake of being able to co-parent our children in the future. I told her I didn't believe she even cared about me. No person who cared even a little for someone else would put them through this kind of pain. They would not betray them in such a way as she had done. Her telling me that she loves me has no meaning or credibility because her actions conclusively prove otherwise. She became completely incoherent at this point. I could not make heads or tails of anything she was saying. It's just a jumbled mess. In the end, I had to call her sister because honestly, I wasn't going to take care of her. Her sister showed up, and after I explained what was going on, she took her away. I felt tremendous relief when they were gone, like I could finally breathe for the last time in 7 months. I don't know what I'm looking for here. She must have known this was going to happen. She must have wanted it. She can't possibly be that stupid that she thinks this behavior, these choices she made, would result in anything other than divorce and a broken family. She is beautiful. She is smart. Our marriage was great up until she started her affair. I have accepted the life changes. I have moved past it. Now she's pretending that she loves me, that she wants us to remain married in a family. What could possibly be her motivation to have this major drama at this point? What could she gain? I mean, she couldn't possibly expect us to try to reconcile at this point, could she? There must be some kind of ploy. I just can't figure out what the effort is. I have lots of evidence of her cheating. I live in a European country, and this would mean no alimony or anything for her. Could that be it? Is she afraid I will out her? Could that be it? She wants me to feel sympathy so I don't tell people about what she did. Her affair partner is married, so maybe she is scared I will tell his wife? I just can't get my head around it. Anyway, I just had to get this out of my head. I was hoping it would make more sense to type out, but no. I am just as confused now as when I started this rant. The cult of Abe Lincoln thinks you absolutely should tell his wife that he is cheating on her. I believe it's a sign of respect as a kindred spirit whose soul has been crushed by infidelity. I guarantee you will cause her pain, and I almost as much guarantee she will thank you for it. You have to think it's all about the kids at this point. I would strongly encourage you to focus on being the best father, and no matter how much it hurts, not to allow them to see that their mother has ripped your guts out and stomped on them. Kids are smart. They'll figure it out. Be the best man you can be for them. You'll regret doing anything less. As for Monica, hey, she sounds really cool, and she's understanding of what you have going on, which is awesome. I would advise strongly against rushing into anything, however. You have a massive variable changing your marriage, obviously, and it may be best not to upset the equation with another. I've seen many men sign up for the first replacement they can find, and most came out worse for wear. That said, you sound like you two have great chemistry and history, so best of luck. After all, it sounds like she's willing to be patient, so why not? Lastly, and most importantly, dude, you owe nobody an explanation or apology for how you handled this. It's heartbreaking to learn your trust has been so badly misplaced and then have to confront the massive black hole in front of you. Your wife completely betrayed her family, and you were completely correct in thinking she, at least subconsciously, was willfully breaking apart her own family. The AP responds, "Thank you for your advice. I'm leaning towards telling the affair partner's wife. Thank you for your advice on the kids as well. I was already very focused on that. This is going to be hard for them, so I will do everything I can to be there for them whenever they need me. Update. My cheating soon-to-be ex-wife confuses the hell out of me. So first of all, thank you to everyone. It's been overwhelming in many ways. I haven't had a chance to answer everyone, but I have tried to read everything. I posted 3 days after the conversation with my soon-to-be ex-wife, and I had hardly slept. Actually, I passed out reading messages on my computer. When I woke up the next day, I had an interesting keyboard pattern on my face and a much clearer mind. I decided to make some lists for and against all the key points. I put a bunch of papers on the wall. I made a headline on each of them: Our Kids, How to Behave When Meeting the Wife, My Marriage, Monica, Questions to Ask My Wife, etc. The final document is too big to retype here, so I will just cover some of the main points. My goal was trying to figure out what core principles I wanted to put in place and what are the most important things that I wanted to focus on. Then I went through each of those and evaluated whether or not I would actually be able to achieve anything meaningful from it and what would be a meaningful result in the case I got anywhere. As for the kids, they are my #1 priority. I will increase my efforts to help them deal with this. More individual counseling and family counseling. I will arrange trips and spend more quality time together and make new memories. I will also involve the rest of my family on my side to drown them in love and help them through this. I will also talk to their teachers, coaches, etc. I want to make sure their support system is immediate and everywhere. I got an STI test and I've also booked DNA testing for the kids. Just thinking they may not be mine makes me very uncomfortable, but I have to make sure for their sake. If they're not mine, maybe there is some medical history they need to know about. What if they want to reach out to the real father when they get older? How will they see me if I don't act now to make sure? Hopefully, they're mine, and I will be stressed until I get it confirmed one way or the other. After talking alone to their therapists first, they joined us, and we explained everything carefully and let them ask as many questions as they wanted. I repeated over and over and over again that they could come to me with anything. I am their dad. I love them more than anything, and I will always be there for them. Whatever they need, no matter what. As for my marriage, I came to the conclusion that I could never trust my wife again. Without trust, it's not possible to have a relationship. I also came to the conclusion that I do not love my wife. I don't love the person she has become. My love for her used to be a very big part of me, but she killed that with the affair. Totally changed my perception of her. Maybe I could learn to love her again, but to be able to do that, I would have to want that, and to be honest, I don't want to. Better to end it and get on with our lives. I no longer want this marriage. I don't want our relationship. I don't want her. The part of me that loved her. The part of me that used to feel endless joy and happiness when thinking about her, that now fills me with dread and memories of pain. Actually, any thought of association with her causes me serious discomfort at the moment. Divorce is inevitable, I think, and I want to get it done as soon as possible. As for Monica, I talked to her a lot. I had some concerns based on the feedback I had here on Reddit. Maybe it wasn't such a good idea to jump into a new relationship. I also didn't want to bring her into my mess, and let's face it, my life is a total mess at the moment. She disagreed. She said life is messy. Might as well see how we deal with that together while dating. I found out why she never married. She was engaged actually. Her fiancé died unexpectedly in a work accident almost 5 years ago. This devastated her, and even though she had gone on a few dates since, she had not been able to form a connection with anyone. From her perspective, life is short, and you have to take risks whenever a true opportunity presents itself. I explained how I don't want to start anything until after the divorce is official. I don't want to cheat while I'm technically married. She agrees and respects that. I also talked about how it could be perceived if we all of a sudden were an item out in the open for everyone to see. It would be easy to try to frame her as the homewrecker. I don't want that. She agreed, and we will wait a little bit after it's official until we do anything. I feel incredibly drawn to Monica. This phone call is a borderline emotional affair in my mind, so I will not contact her again until I am done with legal separation. We agreed that I would get my affairs in order and contact her when I was ready, and we would see what to do then. When it came to planning the meeting with my wife, I wrote down some principles on who I wanted to be. I would make every effort in my meeting with her to try to be that man, the man I used to be before all this. I decided I needed to stay calm. I would make every effort not to be cruel. I would keep in mind that the purpose of this conversation was to move on with our lives. The purpose was to be able to co-parent as good as possible for our kids. Still, I prepared a list of questions to try to understand her thinking about having this affair and also what she was thinking about moving forward. I'm not going to be deceitful. I was not going to give her false hope that there was a chance to reconcile just to get a postnup or some benefit in divorce. I have decided to act as fairly as possible. I will divide all assets with her equally. We will have 50-50 custody. Even though she has acted terribly towards me, I will not use her as a role model. I will act so I can stand by my actions today, tomorrow, and 20 years from now. I hate her for what she did to me, what she did to us, to our children, but I love the memories of the good times we had together while it lasted, and I love the children that we created and raised together. I will try to remember her in this light moving forward, not her cheating. I can't carry hate in my heart, so at some point, I need to forgive her so I can move on. Up until the point she cheated, I think we had a very good marriage. We would make love every day. We spent a lot of quality time together. We hardly ever argued. We sacrificed for each other willingly. I was actually very open with her up until I discovered her infidelity. I believe she was open with me as well, but now her actions show this is not to be the case. So Saturday came and I went to see her. Her sister had warned me that she was not in good shape. She was not wrong. My soon-to-be ex-wife looked absolutely horrible. Bloodshot eyes, swollen face, unkempt hair. She looked many sizes smaller than I remember, like she had imploded into herself. I doubt she has slept or eaten much this week. We all sat down, and my wife was shaking almost uncontrollably. I felt surprisingly calm. I felt for her obvious pain, but not as a loving spouse. I felt for her pain like I would feel for an actor in a movie I was engaged in. I don't know how to explain the feeling really. It confirmed that I probably don't love her anymore. I just sat there and waited for her to collect herself enough to speak. She started several times but would break down crying. Watching her, it's clear it's not an act. I've seen her cry many times before, but never like this. I guess people can fake crying, but I doubt anyone can fake the look of crying nonstop for a week mixed with soul-torturing sobs and giant snot bubbles. Once she finally started talking, it was like a dam burst. She apologized for every second word. Surprisingly, she didn't try to excuse herself or shift the blame to me. Her sister cried as well and would from time to time berate her. It also became clear that her sister had warned her this would happen. Apparently, it's how her sister lost her fiancé years back. I didn't know that. Her sister's cheating gave my wife a midlife crisis of sorts. She started to think about cheating a lot. In the end, it seems she did this because she got infatuated, had a crush on the guy, and couldn't help herself. She never believed I would find out or that anyone would get hurt. It was a completely selfish thing. She was apparently very happy in our marriage. She convinced herself that she deserved this fling and that I probably supported her choice if I knew how happy she was at the time. She convinced herself that this affair would pass, and we would all go back to living happy family lives ever after. She had no idea I had found out, and only when I started to check out did she start to question what was going on. I learned she broke up with the affair partner about 1.5 months ago. The buzz had started to wear off. She gave me her phone to check, and she had blocked him. When I unblocked him, the messages dating back 1.5 months started pouring in. She had been trying to re-engage me in our marriage, but I hadn't shown an interest in having anything to do with her up until I sat her down. She was convinced that we would be able to find a way back together and that we would end up stronger than ever. When she looked into my eyes when I confronted her, she understood that this was probably the end of the line. The reality of it all hit her like a ton of bricks. I tried asking her some questions, primarily about what it was in her mind that gave her the right to do this to us, to our children. Basically, it's nothing but selfishness on her part. I realized, like so many of you pointed out, that I will never get the answers that I'm looking for because they don't exist. There is no acceptable answer for cheating. Therefore, I will never get an acceptable answer. I did, however, get closure in a weird way. I got to explain to her how badly she had hurt me, the incredible pain she had caused. I got her to accept that it's her fault that our marriage is broken and that our children will grow up in a broken home. This gave me a strange feeling of peace. She had been reading everything she could about fixing a broken marriage after infidelity. She had a complete timeline, a detailed confession signed, and everything ready for me. I haven't read it. I just gave it to my lawyer. She begged and begged and begged for a second chance. She would do anything, she said. I told her I didn't believe her. In fact, I didn't believe anything she said. I just don't trust her. She asked me what she could do to fix it. I told her she broke it. If she doesn't know, how can she expect me to present her with a solution? I asked her if she was in my shoes, what would she answer to that? If anything, these types of questions went back and forth for a while. In the end, she conceded that had the roles been reversed, she probably wouldn't forgive this either. I told her I had got an STI test and that I would DNA test the kids. She completely broke down for about 20 minutes when she heard this. She insisted that this was the only time she had ever cheated or done anything out of line. Again, after some back and forth, she conceded that I had no reason to believe her, and if she was in my shoes, she would probably do the same. I asked her if the affair partner's wife knew. She didn't know. She conceded that she deserved to know. I asked her if she would tell her or should I. She asked me if I would consider reconciling or marriage counseling if she told her. I told her no, but I said it would help her regain a tiny bit of respect in my eyes. She promised to tell the affair partner's wife and everybody else. She would go to HR as well and confess everything. Again, I told her I didn't really believe her. She swore she would never be with anyone else and that she would never give up on getting back with me, even if it took the rest of her life. I didn't believe her, but I didn't say anything. It was getting redundant at this point. She offered me a one-sided open marriage, access to all her communications, and 24/7 availability. I told her that I had talked to Monica and that I was waiting because I didn't want to cheat. I don't want to be in an open relationship. It would hurt her if we did that, and I don't want to hurt other people like she hurt me. I don't want to be her jailer either. Constantly snooping on her and being suspicious isn't grounds for a healthy relationship. I'm not interested in intimacy without a deeper connection either. Sex for the sake of mechanical sex has no value for me. If I need mechanical release, I can fix that on my own. I don't need a partner for that. At this point, we were all exhausted. We'd been going at it for over 5 hours, and my wife had been crying on a scale from bad to absolutely horrifying almost the entire time. We weren't going to get any further on this. It was done. I told her very clearly that the love I used to have for her had died. I didn't recognize the person she had become anymore. Our family had died by her hand, and I would go through with divorce. I told her she could not undo what she had done. The only way to avoid this result would have been to not start the affair 7 months ago. I didn't want our marriage back. I didn't want her back. I did not want more pain. I suggested we go no contact for a while to get some distance and perspective. I told her I already filed and that my mind was made up. We could start family therapy to co-parent, but beyond that, I don't even want to see her. This is incredibly painful to tell her. She was crying hard while mumbling, "No, no, no, please no, please no." When I got her to leave, she got a massive, almost explosive nosebleed. She started to reach for me, but she passed out. I managed to catch her before she hit the floor. I drove her and her sister to the ER and stayed until I learned she would be okay. Last night and today, the soon-to-be ex-wife has been telling everyone what she has done. The affair partner's wife called me this morning to get confirmation that what my wife had told her was true. I sent her copies of some of the evidence. I just learned she kicked her husband out. She wants to meet and look at more of the evidence. She's been suspecting for a long time but hasn't had anything solid. I suggested we sit down for dinner tomorrow. She had a need to talk and asked if we could talk on the phone. I don't know if I can take that on right now. I told her maybe later. I freely admit I'm feeling like a piece of crap. I haven't been able to sleep. Cracks are forming in my resolve. I know I must stay strong, but it's very hard. Why do I feel so guilty? Why do I feel responsible for trying to fix this? We may be able to fool ourselves for a while, but it will most likely not work long term. Some of her friends and relatives have been calling me up and cursing me out. They think I should give her a second chance. But in my mind, I am thinking, why drag out the pain? Better to get it over with so we can start to heal and build our new lives. So that's it. Nothing spectacular. No revenge. No resolve. No peace. No happy ending. Just more pain for all of us. My mind is in a very dark place right now. I don't know what to do, to be honest. Thomas J.G. has a closing remark. I've always had this perspective about marriage. It's obvious, like you two are building, adding parts, and decorating to make it the most wonderful base until your soon-to-be ex-wife threw it to the ground and now is trying to pick up the pieces and rebuild it. Some pieces will never be found, and after you leave, she may try to show you that she's trying to rebuild the base. But there will be cracks everywhere, and every time you may touch that base, you will get cut. She may spend the rest of her life trying to fix the broken base, but I recommend you start building another base with another person. By the way, I had a midlife crisis because my sister cheated and constantly thought about cheating. A married person who really loves their partner would never do that. I am deeply sorry this happened to you, my man. Her family isn't worth your time. I mean, both kids, her and her sister, are cheaters, and now they're crying because the consequences are now too big, both losing their partners for life, for them to bear. Don't cave in. Remember, you are the reward. You will always be looking for this. This is the perfect time to rebuild your self-esteem. Do some exercise. Trust me, do it. We'll end up with 5 kilos more just like me. Please exercise. Find a new hobby. Go out for walks with a mask and all protective things like alcohol. Also, you're currently giving your kids the best example that cheating is unforgivable and that they deserve better when they are cheated on when they are older. Hey guys, so my advice for you is to find a partner from a good background that doesn't have that kind of stuff going on in their life, or to find a good community with good faith and strict life. Thanks for listening. Now on to the next story. Story 4. My cousin slept with a minor and convinced her to say it was me. 2 months ago, a girl messaged me and we started talking. I didn't know who she was because she didn't have a set profile picture, but she said she knew me and didn't want to reveal her identity, so I went along with it. Our conversations were pretty normal and innocent. Things were going fine and I felt like I'd found a friend in this girl until my cousin barged into my house and started shouting at me. He punched me in the face and told me that I needed to stay away from his girlfriend. I asked him what the hell he was talking about and he showed me her account. It was the girl I'd been messaging. He told me to block her and threatened that if I didn't, he'd do much worse the next time he saw me. I ended up blocking her, but 2 weeks after the incident with my cousin, she messaged me from a new account apologizing on my cousin's behalf. I asked her who she was and she told me her name was Rashad and that she was my neighbor's daughter. I immediately blocked her on this new account because I knew the girl next door had just turned 16. It took me a couple of minutes to realize that my cousin was dating my 16-year-old neighbor, but when I did, I debated on whether I should tell her father or not. I knew this was a stupid idea. My cousin's a dangerous guy, which led me to keep quiet about the entire thing. After I'd put this all in the back of my mind, it would later come to haunt me. Another 2 weeks later, I was hanging out with friends when a car pulled up in front of us. I noticed that it was the 16-year-old girl from next door and her father. They'd walked out with 2 other men waiting in the car. Her dad told me to get in the car and told me that if I didn't do it by choice, he'd force me in himself, which completely erased any hesitation I had beforehand. I entered the car and we drove far away from home and ended up in the desert. When we arrived, this girl's dad got straight to the point and asked me if I was sleeping with his daughter. I immediately denied it and tried to provide him with the honest truth that the only thing that had ever happened between us was the time we used to send messages on Facebook. But they didn't let me. They began beating me until I passed out, and when I finally woke up, I was in the hospital with a few broken bones. My brother told me that our neighbor was accusing me of sleeping with his daughter. Later that day, one of my friends who were close to my cousin told me that the girl's father had a suspicion that she had been seeing someone, and when he kept pressuring her to tell him who the guy was, she ran to my cousin and he told her to give her dad my name. Today, my brother told me her father is pressing charges against me for having an intimate relationship with a minor, and I worry that this may be my last day before I get arrested. Update. My cousin slept with a minor and convinced her to say it was me. I spoke with my family. I assured them that I didn't do anything I was being accused of. My older brother has since hired me a lawyer. I ended up showing the lawyer all of the messages between me and my underage neighbor, but strangely nothing was deleted like I thought they'd be. My guess is that her father took away her phone before she could delete any of the messages between us and portray me in a negative light to protect my cousin's image. My lawyer ended up getting the charges against me dismissed before they could even reach the court, which left me feeling relieved as it would have been much harder for me to prove my innocence if this had escalated to a full-on court case. Later that day, though, I got a message from my cousin threatening me. He told me that I needed to take the blame or he'd unalive me. I showed the messages to my lawyer almost instantly, and he quickly decided the best course of action was to contact the police. This led my cousin to get arrested. After this, I sent screenshots of my cousin's messages and threats toward me to the girl's father and told him to check her phone for our messages so that he could see that this was all just a huge misunderstanding and I was innocent. The next day, her father apologized to me and said he would pay for my lawyer and compensate me for all the damages he had caused. He explained how hard it was to get information out of his daughter about who she was dating, and when the first thing that came out of her mouth was my name, he was too angry to investigate the situation any further. He told me that while he had taken her phone away, he never thought to check any of her messages. As for my cousin, he's now facing charges for having an inappropriate and intimate relationship with a minor and for threatening me. My cousin's friend called me to tell me that my cousin had gotten kicked out of their gang. He explained that they didn't want anything to do with him after they found out he violated their code by sleeping with a minor. I plan to update once more when the judge makes a ruling regarding my cousin's case, but for now, I'm just glad I got to prove my innocence and that I won't be going to jail for a crime I didn't commit. We have reached the end. If you liked this video, please be sure to like and subscribe to the channel for more videos like this, and give us your thoughts about the stories in the comments section. Thank you and see you in the next video.